All right, welcome into the 305 guys on the Five Reasons YouTube channel. We decided to change the name. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick on the Five Reasons Sports. We got Alex Donno. You can follow him at Alex Donno. We are here every Tuesday and Thursday typically. I don't know why we didn't call it 305 guys from the very beginning. I,
We're
I don't
not that
know. And
bright.
now no, and then we do the show. We were doing the show at 1 o'clock, so it wasn't quite as aligned. We do that a lot of the time, but then we've started pushing the show to three o'clock. So it was like, okay, the extra 5 minutes is basically so you can give me time to arrive. And now it just fits. It's like, okay, 305, five guys, 305 guys, whatever. I don't live in the 305, but it is what it is. Neither does Udonis Haslam, and yet he's
Well, neither
considered
do
the
I
man of the
anymore either.
305.
I lived there the
But
vast majority of my life, and no longer.
yes, exactly. So we're not really the 305 guys, I suppose. I don't know, but anyway, and also apologize here because apparently something's wrong with my camera filter. I'm not there. There are some news anchors. There's one on MSNBC, and she literally uses this filter. It's like filter after filter after filter because she's aged a little bit. I promise you, I did not do this on purpose, even though I have aged over time, mostly from watching the Miami Dolphins. But anyway, we're going to talk about the Heat today. And we are going to talk about our sponsor first. Prize Picks. Use the code 5FIVE. You put down $5, you get $50 to play right away. We are in like the sports equinox right now. Everything is going on. You've got World Series, you've got the NHL, you've got the NBA, you got the NFL. They're all playing right now, as is MLS, college football. I mean, seriously, like this is the time. October tends to be it. So check it out. Prize Picks. You can pair, that's the key thing. You can pair players from different sports together, not just from different teams. So again, you get the $5, put down the $5, play it. They'll give you 50. This no catch, no strings attached. Pretty damn good deal. Go to prizepicks.com. Again, use the code FIVE. All right, we're going to talk Heat today. And it's funny because this is where I thought they'd be 2-1. I thought they'd lose the opener to Orlando. Um, and I thought they'd win these two games. So, like, they are where we expected, or at least where I expected. And they get the Knicks in here on Wednesday night. And yet, I don't know. There's some things feel off right now. Like they're 2-1, but I'm going to give you a stat. This is a small sample size theater, by the way, but
Yeah.
it's a trend to watch. So Alex Toledo put this on our Discord server off the floor. After 3 games with 40 measly minutes, again, small sample size theater, of playing time, the Heat's starting lineup so far, minus 29 net rating, 96.25 offensive rating. They're shooting 42.9% on twos, 25.8% on threes, 125.32 defensive rating. That's what the other team is scoring per 100 possessions. Opponents are shooting 53% on twos and 32% on threes. So they're 2-1. They could have dropped the game to Detroit. They didn't. And they finally won a game on a ceremony night because it feels like they always lose those. They lost on UDs. They lost on Pats. They won on Dwayne's. Okay, so
Yeah. They need, which they
take
needed to do.
positive.
If they didn't win on Dwayne's, I would have been very upset.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Dwayne or Lawrence Fishburne. I don't know who would have been upset. If this comes in on the comments, this bill just needs to end already. Well, and that's kind of what I want to get into with you here, because again, we're 3 games into the season. Like 3 out of 82. I mean, that is what one. What are we talking about here? Like 127th. Like it's not even a full NFL game in terms of the depth of the season we're into. So I don't want to draw too many conclusions, but the starting lineup has struggled when it's played together. Their best lineups basically are Jimmy and the bench so far. The Bam 3-point shooting has not carried over. Thomas Bryant is shooting and occasionally making a three, but Bam has shot some, but he hasn't made any. And looked like he was looking away from it in the third game against Detroit.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. So and Jimmy, I don't really think anything's changed here because Jimmy played well against bad teams last year and didn't play well against good defenses. And that's pretty much what's happened. He played well against Charlotte and Detroit, and he didn't play well against Orlando. He had 3 points. So, the other thing to look at here is pace. They were going to play faster. They're 29th in the league in pace. And again, the threes and layups offense is great if you make threes, but as I said, they're not making threes. And Bam has not followed up on his strong preseason with a strong start to the regular season. So, really, the only positive takeaway I have from the starters is that Hero and Rozier have looked comfortable together. They missed a lot of shots yesterday, but the shots were in and out, and they're taking threes, so their shot profile is what they want. But Alex, I mean that's pretty much where I'm at. Like I don't think anything's been proven one way or the other right now. I feel like that's going to happen against the Knicks and then probably against Sacramento at home, but then more so on that trip that takes them to Phoenix, Denver, and Minnesota. I feel like that's when we'll get a sense, and I guess I don't have the best feeling about it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you had that stat on the starting lineup specifically. If you dig a little deeper, I was looking at this stat today that if you just go with when Jovic, Hero, and Bam have shared the floor together, they're at a minus 47 in 65 minutes. So these are some weird trends when you talk about certain combinations of players, including your starting five, which is pretty important. Obviously, we know Spo reserves the right to tinker not only with lineups and rotations, but also with the style of play. So, like you, I'm trying not to overreact to a 3-game sample. I guess it's good that they've won more games than they've lost. So you'll take a 66% winning percentage at this point. But just to echo your frustration, I guess what's a little bit aggravating to me is that a lot of the differences and a lot of the positives we saw in the style of play in the preseason just haven't transferred over. And I see a couple of people saying this in the live chat already that it's like they showed you a lot of different looks preseason wise, but then you actually put them on the floor and it's pretty much the same team that we saw last year. There hasn't really been much of a difference there. I think to me the most encouraging thing, you talked about Rozier and Hero together. Scary Terry specifically has been someone that I've really enjoyed watching because we didn't really get the opportunity to see him last year healthy and at full strength, and I just love his athleticism. I love the speed he plays with. I know the team pace hasn't been good, but I like his pace. I love that half court lob that he threw up to Jimmy the other night. So it just kind of, again, it reminds me, and obviously, for the most part, the Heat ran it back from last year, but like one guy that we didn't, really see integrate
Right.
himself with the team last year was Terry Rozier. So we're really getting to see that for the first time. So I've enjoyed that. I've enjoyed seeing, a little bit more consistency so far from Hero. I know he wants to remind anybody that despite what Udonis Haslem may have said, he is a starter and he's happy to be a starter. So hopefully that keeps working out for him because that's Hero and Terry, specifically Terry, have been probably the highlights so far for me.
Yeah, no, and I'm with you on Terry. I think there's going to be a little bit of a roller coaster with Terry. There's going to be games he just doesn't shoot well.
Yeah.
He has more shots rim out than any guy I've seen. Like his form is fine, the ball's there, it just doesn't go down a lot of time. But I like his persistence, the ability to throw a lob and get Bam some easy ones is a positive. We've talked about that for years. They have someone who can actually do it now, and I don't think he and Hero have been that bad defensively. I just think that we saw yesterday they had to go to Highsmith wasn't in the rotation in the first half, but Spo put him in the rotation instead of Burks in the second half, and he essentially is the guy who cleaned up all the Cade Cunningham stuff. So I feel like they're going to
Yeah.
use Highsmith at the point of attack. And he was effective at that last night. But I don't know. I mean, the Hero Rozier thing, like this is where I come down on it. I like the shot profile. Um, I like the way they look together. Like I just feel like they seem connected. They're getting a lot of drive and kick stuff. It reminds me of the 16-17 team with Dragic and Waiters because that was pretty much their whole offense was Dragic and Waiters drive and kick. That was 7-11. This is TNT, I guess. So I like some of it, but it seems to be coming at the expense of other things. Like I don't Bam's not involved.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's because he's not involving himself. And Tony Hitt says they become the Dolphins of the NBA, beat up on bad teams, can't beat good teams. Well, we're going to see. I mean, they get the Knicks, they get Sacramento.
Yeah.
They get Phoenix, they get Denver, they get Minnesota coming up. So
And the
we're gonna
Dolphins can't even beat up on bad teams anymore. So I guess
no.
the comparison doesn't even work.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And any comparison to the Dolphins is bad. I'll just
Uh,
we'll get to them on Thursday, I guess. I look at the Hero Rozier thing and I'm like, they're clearly trying to make this happen. Okay, Spo has
yeah,
looked at it and said, all right, we want to lean on Jimmy less, and we're going to play through our guards. There's a lot of skill there. And like I mentioned, it does remind me a little bit of 7-Eleven and the 16-17 team, but I just wonder what it's going to look like against better defensive teams.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like there was just points in the game where Detroit offered no resistance. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know why they've got Tim Hardaway Jr. and Tobias Harris there. Like they've got some interesting young players, but they're like progress stopping them. Charlotte again, bad defensive team, not particularly connected or engaged. Or against Orlando, there were some struggles. And I thought Tyler played a pretty good first half there, but to me, we're going to get a better sense of this because even though the Knicks, and I don't know what Brunson's status is going to be for tomorrow because he injured his knee and then he came back, and I know Hart may be hurt now also. He may be out, so they may not see the entire team, but they still have wings. They've got Mikal Bridges and they've got Anunoby. And I just think that Rozier and Hero are going to see those guys, and that's when I start to wonder when they start going against bigger, longer players. Does what they're doing now translate? A couple other things that come in here. Let me go to some of the comments, and then we'll get to the other side of
sure.
this and some things that maybe they could improve. Nick Johnson says bench Bryant and play where. This has become the hot topic. I knew it would. We said it before the season. Uh, Look, I'm fine with benching Bryant. It's just that they're not. It's not going to be bench Bryant and play where they're going to play Love.
Yeah,
Kevin,
right, right.
Kevin's coming back.
Oh, I was
And
about
when
to
Kevin
ask,
comes back,
is he healthy again?
well, he's healthy, but he's got his personal issues, and so
Oh,
it's
that's
just
I'm sorry.
that.
I forgot
No,
it
it's
was a
okay.
personal
Well, no,
issue.
we
Yeah,
we literally found out 15 minutes before the first game. So like
yeah,
this was something very abrupt. I don't know what it is, and even if I did, I would not
yeah.
I would not repeat it because it's again
Right.
it's personal. But I just think that yeah, Kevin's going to get that spot. I mean, the Ware thing. I just don't know how much of a difference he's going to make. People are going to point to it. The Heat are very bad defensive rebound percentage right now. Okay, maybe having another big
Yeah,
body would help, but I've also seen Ware get the ball stripped out of his hands a lot on rebounds. He's not particularly aggressive for them on the defensive end. He has to grow into his body. I mean, this is a process. I don't know that he's the difference right now. Like to me, all of this with this team, that is what it is, Aaron, and I knew it would happen. All everything with this team, Alex, is can they get this starting lineup to work? And it seems like
yeah,
Jimmy is effective without them.
yeah,
And Spo's trying to stagger all this stuff, but they keep trying some different combination around Jimmy, Bam, and Tyler. And the reality is it usually doesn't work. So here we are again. Now it's Rozier and Jovic. They've had other guys in that mix too. I don't know. Like I said, the Knicks, these games are going to test them. And we'll get to the Jimmy thing. We should get to the Jimmy thing on the other side because I'm seeing the
sure.
Jalen Green stuff. And everything else and the rumors around Jimmy. So we'll talk about that in a second. Before we do, want to mention a great new sponsor, or not new sponsor, they've been a sponsor for a while, but a great sponsor of the Five Reasons Sports Network. Our friends over at Water Cleanup of Florida. You can find them at WCUFL.com. That's WCUFL.com. Your one-stop water and mold cleanup shop. They'll take you through the entire process. If you see a leak in your place of business, in your home, call them right away before it gets worse. Of course, if you wait and it has gotten worse, they can then try to clean it up after that. But they do a great job. They got more than 100 5-star reviews on Google. So check them out. Water Cleanup of Florida, WCUFL.com. What do you think of Jimmy so far?
Uh, I guess I'm satisfied, Ethan. I like he's getting to the line more. I think he's been
Yeah.
playing with some energy. I don't like the way that some of these combinations haven't worked, like you said, but I think it's been kind of what I've expected, bouncing back from
Yeah.
Jimmy this season. What about you?
Yeah, I mean 5 steals in the last game. When there's defensive
Yeah.
activity, then it tends to feed his offense. First game was kind of a disaster. The last two,
Oh,
he worked
yeah.
yeah, and that's the thing though. That's the thing. Against top 10 defenses last year, we can talk about him not being engaged, but some of it may be declined because against top 10 defenses last year, he shot under 43%. So it's not a huge surprise when he struggles against a team like Orlando. Now, again, Detroit, Charlotte don't put up that kind of resistance. The Knicks will put up more resistance. So we'll see what he has there. But he's kind of worked his way into the last two games and then done a lot of stuff late. Like you mentioned, he is getting to the line. That's positive. He had 23 points yesterday on 11 shots. The rest were free throws.
Right.
So that's all fine. Like it, but it just I don't know. Like I asked him yesterday about pace. I asked him yesterday, and because he wants to slow things down, and he slowed it down to control the game at the end there. But it's just I don't know. It feels like him and Bam are just a step out of this whole offense because it is so Hero Rozier centric right now. And again, I get why they're doing it because you got to try to make this thing work right now while they're both on the team. But ultimately, like, and I don't know if we're even projecting this team as having much of a chance of anything big this year. But ultimately, if you're going to put yourself in position, Jimmy and Bam have to be comfortable, and I think that's something that Spo has to work through here. As far as the Jimmy trade rumors go, those are going to go on all year. Look,
Yeah.
I was him not being at Wade's thing. I don't know the reason for that. He doesn't like going to those things. He didn't go to Wade's Hall of Fame dinner the year before. I thought he was a little bit kind of. He was asked about the Wade thing after the game last night, and I thought he was kind of a little standoffish. Honestly, he didn't. He was not as positive as some of this. I don't know if something's going on. I have no idea. All I know is I talked to Heat people about it, and they said Jimmy's just weird about this stuff, or he had another commitment. Like I don't think they're freaked out. That wasn't a mandatory event for the players.
Yeah.
But with that said, I don't know. It does feel like we're trending towards a breakup here at some point, and not because he missed the weight event, but just because I
Right.
don't really. I don't if they're not going to compete for anything significant, I'm just having a hard time, and they're not going to extend him at the price he wants, and he ain't gonna take a penny less. I don't know. I guess I'm trying to figure out what the point is here. Like they're leaning into the Hero Rozier backcourt. We talked so much about Bam. Hawkins, I think, has looked good. Actually, he looked very good last night. So I don't know. I don't. I'm not predicting he's going to get traded. I think a lot of it has to do with the market. But if you told me he was going to get traded, would I be stunned? No.
Yeah, I mean the way that I look at it, and obviously, Riley and Andy in the front office, they're a lot smarter with this stuff than you and I will ever be. But it's like I get it that you're probably not going to get fair value in return if you deal away Jimmy Butler. Like I understand that other teams are going to try to fleece you because you don't have that much leverage with Jimmy being older, and you're probably going to lose him
Mhm.
anyway. But then if you're going to lose him anyway for nothing, I think
Mhm.
you try to get something for him is the way that I look at it. As far as, not showing up to the Wade ceremony, I'm of two minds with that. Like part of me
Mhm.
says, honestly, like his job is to play basketball. Like, what do I care if he's showing up to extracurriculars? But then at the same time, you're the face of this franchise right now. And maybe some fans would
Mhm.
argue it is or should be Bam. But I mean, Jimmy is the face of this Heat franchise right now. He and Wade are supposedly close or have been close in the
Mhm.
past. It means something. Like sometimes you go the
Right.
extra mile to be there and to show face. So I was a little back by that. At the end of the day, like I'm not going to start pounding on my table, say you have to trade Jimmy now because he's disrespecting your franchise. I think there are other reasons why they should probably think about trading Jimmy before the deadline. But I can live with him not showing up to
Mhm.
the Wade thing. All the indications outwardly seem to be that there's no rift there. I'll take that at face value. But I don't know. I think why would you not strongly consider trading him, Ethan? I know it's got to be the right deal, but if you can make some deal with value when you're probably losing him next summer anyway, I don't see why you don't explore it.
Well, I'm looking at the comments here and from Jasmine. Welcome to poverty season. If Jimmy is gone, I understand
Mhm.
that sentiment. I do. Jimmy is the ceiling raiser on this team. But
Yeah.
it's like you said, if he's not going to resign or they're not going to max him out to, which is what he wants. I mean, he wants his money. And if that's the case and this team is not really going anywhere, then I think it's something they do have to consider before the deadline. And I think they have to decide which of the young pieces they want to keep. sitting there across from Dwayne yesterday and remembering his later stages of his career. Okay, and he was even asked about it, and he said Jimmy is our leader. It's just so interesting when Dwayne uses the R. The he basically is branding himself still with the Heat, even though he's part owner in Utah, and that needs to be remedied at some point. I think it
Yeah, and
will
you know
be, by
what's
the way.
funny? For this past week, with everything going on
Mm,
with the
mm,
statue and the ceremony,
mm.
like I kind of forget for these past few days that he is part owner of the Jazz, because that's
Right.
something, it's
I
very
think he
much been
does.
on
I
my
think he
mind.
does.
Yeah,
It.
yeah,
I think he does too, Alex. I think he does too. I think eventually he's going to be back. I think that
yeah,
if you listen to the way he talked about the Arisons and Riley over the past couple of days, I mean, a lot of that has been patched, which I knew. But it's just, it seems to be in a much better place. I think Dwayne's at peace with a lot of things he wasn't at peace with before, and I do think that's going to happen ultimately. And I think that it's family issues more so than what I think fans think it is, and there's a bunch of things that go into that, and I just don't think he's moving to the state of Florida with the current governor in place. I mean, just among other things, I just know how Dwayne views some of these things. So, I just I think that when you look at the Jimmy part of this, okay, um, he's different than their typical franchise players. He's described to me as someone in the front office says Jimmy's weird. But they mean it in a redeeming way. Like, they're not trashing him or anything like that. He's just different. He's a lot to handle. And, I've covered the team since 1996, and Tim Donovan has been media relations chair that entire time. And I can never remember when you asked Tim if a player was going to speak. He's like, I don't know. And I just yeah, he walked right by us in the opener, and look, he doesn't have to speak that. I mean, he kinda does, it's in his contract, but it's not
yeah,
that I'm personally offended. If he spoke last night, he spoke in Charlotte. It's not that I'm personally offended by it, it's just that you score 3 points in the season opener, and you leave Bam to take the questions, and I feel like it's always leaving Bam, and it's like what you said, which is that Bam, we can argue if Bam's the franchise player. No, Jimmy is the ceiling raiser, but everybody is anointed Bam as next because they kinda know Jimmy doesn't want it. Like, and
yeah,
that's and so Bam even had to take the captainship, which he didn't want, and it just feels, and then Dwayne's comment about the house divided, which he said twice. He said it out. He said it during his speech, and then he said it to us in the media room. And I that is something that Riley has said, although it's a Bible verse, and it's also happens to be something Abraham Lincoln said. But it is something Riley has used, and he used it in his book Winter Within. And it does feel like there's just something a little off. That's all. And
yeah,
to that point, Bam did get paid. That's true, Tony. Bam did get paid. But Bam's also 27 years old. Like, I mean,
yeah.
they're not on the
Time to
same
get paid.
timeline.
Yeah,
Right. I mean, if Jimmy was 27, they would have paid him too. But
yeah,
I, his performance the last 2 games has been encouraging that he still has it in there somewhere. Okay. That's good.
yeah,
I want to see it. I don't care if he shows up to weight events. I want to see him perform in Minnesota. He always skips that game. There's always some reason he's not there. Um, I want to see him perform in Minnesota. I want to see him perform against the Knicks. I want to see what he looks like in Denver. Um, those are teams that have given him problems. Okay, well, not the Knicks. Well, Josh Hart stepping on his ankle, but the other two, Denver and Minnesota, have given him problems traditionally. And if they give him problems after Orlando gave him problems, it's all we're talking about all the same kind of teams: length, size. And then then you like, can you pay a guy $58 million for a year when he can't perform at a high level against a good chunk of the defenses in the league? You know, I don't know. Beating Detroit and Charlotte's not enough in that regard.
yeah. I agree with that. I mean, it's just such an interesting year where kind of, I know if someone takes this out of context, it doesn't necessarily sound right, but it really is kind of an
Mm,
audition for Jimmy this year. Now, someone with his track record and getting the Heat
mm,
to 2 finals, like, really, you shouldn't need that, but it's just because of
right.
his age. That's what brings that into question when you're
Mm,
when you're trying to
mm.
secure the type of money he wants to secure, and you're trying to do it with his age and his history of missing games. Fair or unfair, it does become an audition.
And he has played the first 3 games, so credit there.
Yeah,
And he is seemingly, maybe begrudgingly, but he's accepting kind of this. heavy backcourt reliance that Spoelstra has started the season with. But I can see how it would be frustrating. He wants to get paid. He wants to perform at a certain level, but the shots are being distributed elsewhere. And I know he's never been big on that, but it is going to affect the perception of him, and it will affect him on the open market too if that's what he chooses to do. So just a lot of cross currents right now. I know people are saying it's the same team. I want to believe it's different, but to be different, they're going to need to win at least half of these upcoming difficult games. And I don't know that I necessarily saw a lot against Detroit and Charlotte that convinced me that's going to happen, but we'll see. Anyway, thanks to Alex. We'll have more on the podcast tonight on 5 on the Floor. We appreciate you guys following. More videos are going up as well. If you didn't hear from Jimmy last night, you didn't see it, I'm going to put that up on the YouTube channel too. Alex, thank you. I don't know if we are going to talk. Are we going to punish ourselves and talk Dolphins on Thursday?
I might prefer not to. Two and
Yeah,
five. I mean, what is there? I know,
we'll talk about it.
I know. People have been wondering in recent weeks, like, can they save their playoff chances? Can they
Mm,
stay in it? I mean, at 2-5, I'll have to look up the percentage. I know that only the last couple of years we've had the 17th game and extra playoff
right.
seeds, but I mean, how many 2-5 teams go on to make the playoffs? That's got to be a very short list.
Well, Green Bay did it last year, and I know Dolphin fans are pointing to that, but
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not really seeing it. I mean, they're going to be 2-6 after this weekend, so that's
Yeah.
unfortunate. All right, thanks a lot. We're not going to get into the Wade statue here. We've done enough of that. I am not a sculptor. If he's happy, I'm happy. That's fine. All
Yeah.
right, thanks, Alex. Appreciate our sponsors, Water Cleanup and Prize Picks. Use that code 5.